Call to order the June 26th meeting of the Cary Town Council. And at this time, I'll recognize Councilmember Craig for our ceremonial opening.
Keeping it as a short opening for tonight, please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is to adopt the agenda. I would entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have no recognitions, reports, and presentations this evening, so we'll move to our third item, which is Public Speaks Out. We've included instructions for speaking at this forum online and on the printed agenda. There were 3 opportunities to participate in Public Speaks Out: through written comments, by calling in, or by attending here in person tonight. If you are here in person and would like to speak, I would ask that you please take a seat in the rows to my right that are highlighted. Public Speaks Out speakers have 3 minutes each for their comments and may speak on any town-related topic as long as it's not a public hearing, and that's to your benefit. Public hearing speakers get more time. The 3-minute time limit will be enforced, not to be rude, but to be fair to all of our speakers. We have a timer on the podium. It'll start off with a green light. When it turns yellow, that means you have 30 seconds remaining. And when it flashes red, that's the point. I'm going to interrupt you. Again, not to be rude, but trying to be fair to all of our speakers. I would ask that all speakers be respectful in their comments and direct those comments to the entire council and not to an individual. And I thank everyone in the audience for being here tonight and understanding and respecting that this is a business meeting. Please do not applaud, make remarks from your seats, use props, or do anything else that may distract from this meeting. So now is the time for Public Speaks Out, and first I'll call on our clerk to read any written comments and call on any registered speakers.
So we had 17 written comments. Karthik requests council members ride Go Cary bus route number 5 and complained that it's always running late. Howard Pickett opposes rezonings for apartments near Cocoa Booth Amphitheater. He notes recent apartment developments nearby and urges preserving land for offices, which he believes generate more tax revenue for the town. Chris Johnson had a flat tire, which he believes is caused by construction cleanup at Kilmaine and Maynard, and that's been passed along to staff. We had 2 citizens who wrote in regarding concerns about rising property taxes driven by town of Cary decisions, which burden the residents. They emphasize affordable housing and unchecked growth are not solutions and urge the town to control spending. 7 people wrote in opposition of the Franklin condos at East Park and South Walker, and 4 people wrote in regards to 19 REZ Piney Plains. 3 were in support and 1 in opposition.
Okay, thank you. Any registered speakers?
We do. We have a call-in speaker and then a couple in-person registered speakers. Our first registered speaker is a call-in. Prod, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Am I coming in clear?
Yes, please proceed.
Hi, everyone. My name is Prad Natakadubi. My wife, children, and I have lived in Cary for over 20 years, currently in the Wynwood South community. I want to start by thanking the Town Council for their service and for upholding their responsibility to build a safe and high quality of life town of Cary for all of its citizens. I want to speak tonight against the 19 Res 25 Piney Plains multifamily rezoning case. This rezoning case is not about a vote for or against Habitat for Humanity. This is a case to move a boundary, specifically the boundary of the Crossroads Destination Center, and specifically expanding the destination center to encroach into a traditional neighborhood. Moreover, encroaching the destination center into a traditional neighborhood in order to build high-rise, high-density apartment buildings. High-rises taller than nearly every big box retailer inside the destination center itself, right up against existing traditional neighborhood of single-family homes. And all this despite the obvious reality that an upcoming highway exit ramp will practically cut off this expansion from the destination center itself. And while the future growth framework provides the flexibility to expand the destination center, the town council must exercise its judgment to decide whether this is a proper fit with the 2040 Cary Community Plan. And a selective flexibility from the 2040 Community Plan like this has several important implications. First, extending a destination center into traditional neighborhoods to build high-rise apartments has ramifications for many other Cary neighborhoods, like Lockwoods at Lockmere next to Waverly Place, or Fieldstone Village in Wellesley next to the Green Level West Destination Center. If high-rises are approved to be built in my neighborhood, be careful that high-rises might be built in your neighborhood too. Secondly, the town council is voting whether to allow development of this high density inside the pocket of a highway exit ramp. Is that the vision of Cary's future growth? Packing in high-rises next to highways and a greenway that leads to nowhere? Is that the quality of life the council wants to enable for the future? Finally, the Habitat for Humanity homes are an important part of this proposal, but there are many other zoning classifications suited for a traditional neighborhood, with density ranging between 1 to 6 units per acre that can enable the construction of the Habitat homes and other townhomes in this proposal. The MXD classification, with no vertical mix, no shopping,
sorry,
no
time
community
is-
services,
I'm sorry to have to
is
cut you
clearly
off.
being imposed.
Your time has expired. We do appreciate your comments. And if you have additional comments, please feel free to send them to us.
Our next in-person speaker, Ruth Merkel.
Make sure I'm on the right one. Okay. All right, we'll make sure I'm here for the right one. Hey, good evening. My name is Ruth Merkel, and I'm a resident of Wellington Park, a community down the road from Wynwood South neighborhood and the proposed Piney Plains development. I moved to Cary in 1988, and I love living here. And I believe that everyone who works here or moved here to be with their kids or grandkids should be able to afford to live here. When we moved to Cary with our 3 kids, we were able to buy a brand new 4-bedroom home on 1 income. That is not the case now. The price of homes and even rentals has more than tripled and has become harder for people to buy and rent here. Affordable housing is a serious issue here and throughout Wake County. A perfect example is my son, who has lived in Cary most of his life. He works as a cook in Cary, and he can't afford to rent even a 1-bedroom apartment here. So he has now moved back in with us. And he says where he works, they are having a hard time hiring more staff because the ones they want to hire, they can't afford to live here either. So what brings me out tonight is because Alliance Residential has offered to donate part of the land in the proposed development to Habitat for Humanity to build 15 townhomes and turn them into affordable housing. Now, for several years, I have volunteered with Habitat for Humanity. The homes I have worked on for Habitat, they're safe, they're energy efficient, they're beautiful. They also fit in with the neighborhoods. And as far as these new homes being townhomes instead of single family, I have no problem with that. We have condos in Wellington Ridge, which is down the road from both of these communities, mine and Wynwood South, and I haven't heard anyone complain about them being there. Even the Wellington Park HOA now has agreed to let a developer build several townhomes in our community. So wouldn't you want your children's daycare providers, our teachers, our firefighters, police officers, even the workers who bag our groceries at the Lowe's grocery store to be able to live in safe, secure, and affordable housing. And sadly, if they can't afford to rent or buy a home here, many businesses in Cary may close down because they can't get the workers they need to stay open. So let's welcome people rather than turn them away because they can't afford to live here. President Franklin Roosevelt once said that the test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much.
I'm sorry.
It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little.
Stop you, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you very much.
you.
All right, bye-bye.
Our next speaker is Hugh Devine.
Good evening. My name is Hugh Devine, and I'm here to support the Piney Plains' remarkable opportunity to increase the stock in affordable homes in our town. My wife Nancy and I have lived in Greenwood Acres subdivision in Cary since 1977. Greenwood Acres is a short distance from the Alliance project, and it's included Habitat homes. I've been volunteering with Wake Habitat for over 15 years, primarily on analysis of homeownership need and political and potential actions. As you're well aware, the cost of home ownership in Cary has been rapidly increasing for decades, and with the median cost of housing now, according to Bankrate, about $620,000. Correspondingly, the price of an acre of residential land in Cary, if it can be found, is now approximately $492,000. Meanwhile, salaries for teachers, public safety officials, service workers has failed to keep pace. For example, the average pay for a Wake County K-12 teacher is currently $51,384. This is about $100,000 less than what is needed for a mortgage on a median home in Cary. The Alliance Residential partnering with Habitat for Humanity is a refreshing approach to mixed income development communities and providing opportunities for homeownership for young families that greatly enhance the vitality of our town. The land donation model is a powerful example of collaboration with the private sector, the town, and Habitat to provide mutually beneficial community development. Alliance and Habitat have been refining this project for many years, and a combination of rental and single-family home ownership is a significant achievement. This type of cooperation is about the only way Habitat can continue to assist in Cary. An additional and important element of this project is the inclusion of green space and greenway enhancements directly related to the affordable single-family homes. This is a major enhancement to our community accessibility to this natural area facilitated by this housing location. This is a benefit to the community at large. Quick note on Habitat owners. Homeowners, first of all, they own their home, and it builds intergenerational equity and hence community stability. Next, they pay a down payment and a mortgage just like any other homeowner. Habitat provides financing and sells homes at full market value, adjusting the interest rates to ensure affordability. In addition, Habitat homeowners take full advantage of extensive training and counseling on home financing and ownership, and are well versed in community involvement, including a minimum of 200 hours of volunteer service in construction and other Habitat projects. Finally, Habitat homes are sold at their full
Mr.
appraised
Devine,
value.
I have to stop you now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Patricia Birch. Followed by Caroline Thomas.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Patricia Birch, and I am CEO for Habitat for Humanity of Wake County. I'm here to urge you to vote yes on Alliance Residential's rezoning of the Piney Plains development. Habitat is excited to partner with Alliance on this project. Alliance has agreed to donate a portion of the land to our organization, where in turn we will build at least 16 affordable homes. In addition, Alliance has proposed that 5% of the 370 multifamily units be affordable for families at 80% of the area median income for at least 30 years. If approved, this development will bring 386 new housing units to Cary at a time when new housing supply is desperately needed. Our partnership will also create a mixed-income community, which evidence shows leads to a better outcome for everyone involved. Alliance and Habitat have a formal agreement about this partnership, and we believe that the conditions put forward in the rezoning case show a good faith effort on the part of the developer to ensure that affordable housing will be a part of the location. If approved, Piney Plains could be a pioneering example of partnerships between affordable and market rate developers. Habitat Wake is the leading affordable homeownership provider in the community, and this year marks our 40th anniversary. In the last 40 years, we have built over 950 homes, over 50 of which are in Cary. We hope to continue providing safe, affordable homes in Cary for the next 40 years, so that more families can be a part of the wonderful community that you've built. I respectfully request that you approve Alliance's rezoning request for the Piney Plains development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Caroline Thomas.
Good evening. My name is Caroline Thomas, and I'm a resident in the Wynwood South neighborhood. I'm speaking in relation to the vote tonight on the Piney Plains multifamily rezoning case 19 Res 25. And I'm sure we are all aware by now that a key factor in this case is the fact that the site in question straddles two different classifications, the destination center and a traditional neighborhood. And I'm sure you also know that the Cary Community Plans has guidance for how to interpret situations like this and to not interpret the map edges with rigid fixity, but in light of the policies relevant to the site and particular site circumstances. In this case, the applicant is effectively shifting the destination center boundary southwest into the traditional neighborhood area by proposing two 65-foot buildings there. You have a responsibility to consider key site-specific circumstances in evaluating such proposals. One major consideration is the NCDOT interchange project, which will cut through the northeastern portion of the site and physically sever it from the rest of the destination center. This creates a clear, long-term physical boundary that challenges the original assumptions of the future growth framework. This type of significant infrastructure is the kind of site circumstance the plan refers to, one that should encourage more context-driven interpretation of boundaries. With that in mind, I urge you to evaluate the rezoning request primarily through the lens of the traditional neighborhood classification. When you do, the proposal falls short in terms of height, density, and transition. Specifically, the workforce townhome pod still includes no minimum unit commitment, yet it's being used to bring the overall dwelling unit average down to meeting LDO targets. Without the multifamily portion the multifamily portion alone is around 24 units per acre, a density that doesn't reflect the intent of the traditional neighborhood designation. Please do not overlook how this kind of arithmetic masks the true impact on the surrounding community, especially when the land in question is required to connect to a residential street per LDO. I know you have a difficult decision ahead. I urge you to vote no tonight, not as a permanent rejection, but as a call to do better. A no today can be a not yet that encourages the proposal to return in a better state, not only for the sake of the traditional neighborhood, but in terms of a real commitment to affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last registered speaker is Ray S.
Good evening. My name is Ray Safransky Jr., a resident of the Homestead neighborhood off of Harrison Avenue. Thank you to the Town Council and the Planning and Zoning Board for listening to my comments, as well as to the staff for providing the attachments for this hearing or meeting. I would like to make a few comments regarding the requested rezoning of the Calix Senior Living Facility of Cary off of Harrison Avenue and Reedy Creek Road.
Mayor, this is
That's
a
a
case for public hearing.
That's a public hearing.
Oh, I'm
You'll
sorry.
get more time. Oh, you're fine. You can come back later. I'll call you first,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and we'll have you come up and make your comments then.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
That's all our registered speakers.
If you are here and would like to speak at Public Speaks Out, now's your opportunity, and I would invite you forward on any town-related topic that's not a public hearing. Anyone else for Public Speaks Out? Seeing no one, we'll close Public Speaks Out, and we'll move to our next item, which is the consent agenda. For the benefit of people watching our meeting on TV, I'm going to take a moment to review the consent agenda items. One vote approves all of these items. We have 19 REZ 25 Piney Plains multifamily. We have consideration of Second Amendment to the Downtown Development Project Agreement. We have Emergency Telephone System Fund 911 Fund Budget Amendment. And we have minutes. Would council members like any item pulled for discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I would like the Piney Plains pulled for discussion.
Okay. Any other items pulled for discussion? I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus the Piney Plains multifamily rezoning.
So moved.
Here's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That takes us to public hearings. Same rules apply for public hearings that applied for Public Speaks Out, with one exception. Speakers now have 5 minutes each for their comments. Our first public hearing is the Calic Senior Living of Cary. Principal Planner Aaron Puckett will introduce the item. Council will not take action on this rezoning tonight, but it will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board, and the item will return to council at a future date. Ms. Puckett.
Thank you, and good evening, Council. This is a request to rezone approximately 7.4 acres located at 1005 and 1017 Reedy Creek Road. The site is located south of the intersection of North Harrison Avenue and Reedy Creek Road, with frontage on both streets. It is largely surrounded by detached residential development, and Reedy Creek Middle School and Elementary School are located southeast of the site. The site is also outside of Cary's corporate limits, as are the areas shown in white on this map. It is in the ETJ, so annexation would be required at time of development plan if the rezoning is approved. There are power lines along both the North Harrison Avenue and Reedy Creek Road frontages. According to Cary's GIS, there are no stream buffers present on the site. However, field determination of such features is required at time of development plan review. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan proposes the Reedy Creek Greenway corridor extending east to west from Reedy Creek Road to North Harrison Avenue, adjacent to Melody Lane, which is south of the site. However, the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources System Plan was approved in December of 2024, and the future amendment to the Engaged chapter will occur through a comprehensive plan amendment following the public input phase and pending adoption by council. This system plan update shifts the Greenway corridor alignment north to the subject site. Both North Harrison Avenue and Reedy Creek Road are thoroughfares and are built out to their planned cross-sections, and there is existing sidewalk along both of the site frontages. Go Cary Route 3 has service on North Harrison Avenue adjacent to the property. There are bus stops in the vicinity, but there could be added benefit to a commitment to a stop directly at the location. The site is currently zoned residential 40, and the applicant proposes to rezone the site to office and institutional conditional use, or OICU. The applicant has also offered several zoning conditions, which limit uses to life care community and nursing home. For context, these uses could include facilities similar to Searstone or Glen Eyre. Additional conditions limit the density to 75 units. This is just over 10 units per acre. They commit to construction of the greenway on site as shown on the PRCR system plan, limit buildings on the site to 1 story in height, and provide a 75-foot building setback from the southern property line. A preliminary analysis against the Imagine Cary Community Plan finds that policies in the Live, Engage, and Shape chapters apply most directly. Live policies speak to the importance of housing choice and specifically encourage senior housing, which is further supported by the Cary Housing Plan. The site, which is bounded by 2 thoroughfares and existing development, also provides an opportunity for residential development on an infill site. The commitment to construct the Greenway segment on site, as shown on the updated system plan, speaks to the engaged goal related to provision of greenways. This condition does exceed the minimum LDO requirement to dedicate an easement for future greenway construction. Regarding the transitions policy of the SHAPE chapter, the residential use of the site appears to make a reasonable use transition to nearby detached residential lots, particularly when paired with a one-story limit on the building height, which does help speak to the form of the building. The condition to apply a 75-foot building setback from the southern property line helps ensure additional separation from the detached lots to the south that would otherwise be required by the LDO required 40 to 50-foot perimeter buffer. The traditional neighborhood development category supports detached dwellings as a primary use with moderate amounts of other housing types in discrete pods. This site, which is bounded by the existing road network and residential neighborhoods, could be an appropriate location for a discrete pod of age-restricted housing. There are currently no nursing homes or life care facilities within a mile of the site. Staff facilitated a virtual neighborhood meeting for the proposed rezoning in April of this year, and 43 members of the public participated. Questions and concerns expressed at the meeting included those about parking requirements, buffer widths, the height and size of the buildings, traffic impacts, property value impacts, and the greenway location. Since the neighborhood meeting, staff received emails, calls, or 311 inquiries from 10 citizens. Some shared similar concerns and questions to those voiced during the neighborhood meeting, with most concerns focused on buffers and the greenway. Some inquiries were simply seeking information about the process. Staff mailed notification of the public hearing to property owners within 800 feet of the site, which exceeds the state's and Cary's LDO requirements, and public hearing signs were also posted on the site. This concludes my presentation. Aaron Catlett, the applicant's representative, is here to speak on behalf of the applicant, and then following the public hearing, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Puckett.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Aaron Catlett. I'm an attorney with Fox Rothschild, located at 301 Hillsborough Street, Suite 1120 in Raleigh. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant in this case, Calyx Senior Living by Carillon Assisted Living, to share more about our plan for senior living facility dedicated to caring for the frail elderly who require assistance. Also with me tonight are Marcos Vidal with Carillon Assisted Living and Charlie Townsend with VHB, the engineering firm. They are available to answer questions that you may have tonight. We'd first like to thank Town of Cary staff, and especially Aaron Puckett, for their work in this rezoning process. Aaron did a great job of presenting the background of the case, and we're going to try not to repeat too much of what Aaron shared, but just want to highlight a few things for you and provide some more information about Calyx Senior Living. Calyx Senior Living is an owner-operated, licensed assisted living community based in Raleigh. The Calyx communities provide care for the frail elderly that require assistance with the activities of daily life, including those who require memory care. Calyx facilities are not skilled nursing facilities. They are not active adult complexes, and they're not 55 and older multifamily complexes. Rather, they're facilities to provide assisted living in a home-like environment. Calyx has similar facilities in the Wakefield neighborhood in Raleigh, in Fuquay, and in Durham. The proposed community at this location here in Cary would have a similar look and feel to those existing communities while meeting the town of Cary LDO requirements. As you know, Cary is in need of more senior living options as the population continues to age. The Imagine Cary Community Plan talks about the need for more senior housing. In fact, it notes as of 2020 that 25% of the population in Cary was over the age of 55, making it one of the older aged cities in North Carolina. Further, it noted that on a national level, approximately 2/3 of the nation's population want to age in their current community. Calyx hopes to provide an option for residents here in Cary to do so. Aaron walked through several of the ways that this proposed project is consistent with the policies and objectives set forth in the Imagine Cary Community Plan. And again, providing more housing choices for all residents and specifically for aging seniors as a target. And then also to provide an adequate supply of housing for Cary's growing senior population. Again, Calyx desires to provide one of those options here in Cary. The proposed senior living facility is a residential use and will fit nicely in the area proposed off of Harrison and Reedy Creek. During the first neighborhood meeting, Calyx heard concerns from our neighbors, recognizing that neighbors are used to this site being a vacant, wooded area, and that any development is going to be seen as a big change. Calyx wants to be a good neighbor, so we held a second neighborhood meeting in person to continue to hear more of our neighbors' concerns. Calyx has heard and will continue to listen to our neighbors as we're moving along in this process. As Erin also mentioned in her presentation, Calyx is committed to several conditions, and we hope to alleviate at least some of those concerns with the conditions. We've added the 75-foot setback from the southern property line. Calyx has limited the building height to just 1 story. The use on the property, of course, is limited to just life care, community, and nursing home. The density is limited to 75 units, and we've committed to the public greenway as well. Again, Calyx wants to be a part of the town of Cary and provide a much-needed senior living option. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time and consideration of this senior living facility, and we ask your support in this rezoning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now is the time for the public hearing for 25 REZ03 Calyx Senior Living. And I'm going to call on the clerk to read any written comments and see if we had any call-in speakers.
We had 4 written comments. These written comments range from full support to neutral with concerns about traffic impacts on Reedy Creek Road, frustration with overdevelopment and loss of community character, challenges accessing public spaces and loss of trees. An adjacent homeowner asked to be treated with consideration. We had no call-in speakers and then just our 1 registered speaker from earlier.
Mr. I hope I get his name right, Stefanski?
Yes, Ray S., he said we could call him.
Okay. If you would come back up. And I'm sorry if I got your name
Oh, that's
wrong.
quite all right.
Is
I've
it
been called a
Stefanski?
lot of things, so.
Is it Stefanski?
Safransky.
Safransky, I'm sorry.
That's okay, thank you. Okay, good evening. My name is Ray Safransky Jr. I live off of, in the Homestead neighborhood off of Harrison Avenue. Okay, my first comment is a question. Is the rezoning request correct? The zoning is for a maximum of 75 dwelling units. However, during the neighborhood meeting held on October 2nd, a representative of Calyx confirmed that there are 89 beds planned for this facility. In reading Calyx's response to their justification number 1, I applaud their marketing department. They speak wonderful in corporate idyllic prose. In their words, the facility fit right in. Well, in a single-family residential area, how many other commercial kitchens are there? Expansive parking lots, commercial operations open every minute of the year, ambulances arriving at 3 a.m., commercial deliveries. This facility will not just fit right in. Excuse me. Please remember that their job is to gain your approval, so they will say and do what the council requests until they get approval, and then they will do the minimum that is required to serve their shareholders. The last thing we want to see is another Cary Town Center where they take the trees down and then abandon the property. The second worst thing is they open the facility and then abandon it when it doesn't meet the corporate profitability guidelines. In Calyx's justification number 2, they also stated they would use ancillary businesses to support the Cary economy. This is marketing speak. As Calyx stated during their neighborhood meeting and also tonight, they have other facilities in the triangle. They will leverage this facility to gain better pricing, not expand their vendor base. In the minutes of the neighborhood meeting, it was noted that a traffic study was not needed due to the amount of trips being generated is low. However, based upon the comments during the neighborhood meeting, I believe the traffic study is needed, or Calyx may need to post a sign saying, "Dear residents, please do not have a medical emergency between the hours of 7 a.m. through 9 a.m., and again from 2:30 to 4 p.m. on school days, as we cannot guarantee a timely arrival of medical assistance." per the neighborhood meeting, that road is backed up significantly. If Cary was aware of the commercial development along Reedy Creek, I'm sure they would have redesigned the road when they completely changed it a few years ago. Also, regarding traffic, I used to turn left onto Harrison Avenue when I left for work in the mornings. However, after having to wait an extended period of time most mornings, I have changed my route and used Livingstone Drive to avoid traffic on Harrison Avenue at Homestead, which is very near where the proposed property is. Also, previously stated, this is similar to Glen Eyre or Searstone. This is not going to be anywhere near Glen Eyre or Searstone. It's going to be closer to the Phoenix Assisted Care Living, a small one-level unit. It's not going to be to the caliber of Glen Eyre or Searstone. Also, there is plenty of commercial space just a mile north on Harrison Avenue, where there already are apartments and hotels, which are commercial operations that are more similar to a senior living facility than single-family homes. There is the infrastructure already there to support this facility. Put it there, it'll fit right in. What is the precedence of approving the zoning request? Any land along a major thoroughfare can be rezoned? Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
That was our only registered speaker.
I would invite others to speak at this time.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. I am president of Bailey Family Legacy LLC. We own the property at 771.
Could you give us your name, please?
George Bailey.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, my family has been here since 1872, and we have 14 streets named after us. And so we think this is an excellent property that is as a neighbor for our proposal to the council. We have a proposal that has been accepted by the council, and our first neighborhood meeting will be July 9th. And so some of the same things that we are concerned with, or the neighbors are concerned with, we think this is an excellent fit for our project, which is a 90-unit affordable housing project emphasizing seniors of 55 and older. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hey, Mayor, Council. My name is Kurt Roanoff. I live at 1001 Reedy Creek Road. That's at the corner of Reedy Creek and Melody. I grew up at 1010 Reedy Creek Road, which is across the street. I've lived here my entire life. I care deeply about Cary, but one of the things that has not been discussed when they were highlighting the comments that we made at the Calyx meeting is that all of those homes are dependent on well water. And the site that they're planning on building is not at all flat, and it is uphill from all of us on Melody Lane. When they tear that up, if we are getting major runoff, it will affect our wells. We then would, I don't know what we would do. That's the water we drink. We don't have access to city water. I mean, if we were going to be incorporated, then that would be a different discussion. But as of now, we don't have that. We also have been concerned about the size of the buffer. At the time, they were talking about a 50-foot undisturbed buffer. Now it says a 75-foot building setback from the property line. We had argued at the time, all of us who attended the meeting, I think, would have been much more in favor of this project if there was a 50-foot absolutely undisturbed buffer followed by a 50-foot planted buffer, which could be, decorative or in a natural style or whatever they want. We would also like, they're talking about a greenway easement there that for a future potential greenway. I don't want that right along my property line. My daughter plays there. That's the only shady part of my yard since they took down the trees on Reedy Creek Road when they widened it. And so that is where my daughter has her play area that's outside, and I don't want people walking right by there. So I would prefer them to be on the far side of a 50-foot piece of undisturbed woodland. I understand this land is going to be developed at some point. All of us who live there have a realistic expectation that it is not going to sit there undeveloped. This is, as things go, a better option than, you know, an apartment complex that has 250 or 400 units. We're perfectly happy with this project, but we need to make sure there are considerations for both our well water and our privacy. I mean, that's the reason a lot of us chose to live there, is because we have woodland behind us, so we have a degree of privacy. So if there's consideration for a more substantial barrier, that would be fantastic. And something about, you know, what happens if our wells get destroyed by this. Is Calyx going to do anything about that? Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak at this public hearing?
I'm sorry, could the gentleman repeat his name?
This was Kurt Ronoff?
Kurt Romanoff.
Romanoff.
Thank you.
Anyone else for this public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. And I want to thank all of our speakers for being here. We're in the early stages of this process. We had the neighborhood meeting, and this is the public hearing. Next, it will go to the Planning and Zoning Board, which is an advisory board of citizens, and they'll review it to see if it matches the Cary Community Plan, which was created by Cary citizens. After that, they will make a recommendation to council, and we will see it at that time and vote on it. That whole process from today is probably several months. During that time, there may be changes or changes in the proposal from the development. I would encourage you to contact Erin Puckett, who will be our liaison to not only the rest of staff, but to the developer and to council. So she's the person that will know the most at the soonest. So if you have questions, please contact her. Thank you, Ms. Puckett. We now move to our second public hearing, 24A01 Highcroft Ridge Townhouses. Principal Planner Rachel Smith will introduce the item, and council may take action on this item this evening. Ms. Smith.
Yes, thank you, and good evening, council. The owner of a 4.68-acre property at 1404 Wakena Road is requesting annexation into Cary's corporate limits so they may connect to Cary utilities. Including about 0.57 acres of intervening right-of-way, the total area involved in this request is 5.25 acres. The property is located in Cary's extraterritorial jurisdiction and was rezoned in 2024 to transitional residential conditional use as part of a larger 12-acre proposal, Wakena Towns, for 72 townhomes. The site also falls within the Jordan Lake Watershed Protection Overlay District. The associated development plan is currently under review. After tonight's public hearing, council may choose to take action on the request. This concludes my presentation. After the hearing, I'm available to answer questions.
Now is the time for the public hearing for 25A01 Highcroft Ridge Townhouses. And I'll call on our clerk for any registered speakers, any call-ins, or any written comments.
No registered speaker, written comments, or call-ins.
We have the opportunity to make a motion to approve this annexation. I'll open it up to council for comments, questions.
And if anybody was in the audience.
I'm sorry?
If you wanted to open it, anybody in the audience.
I thought I did. I'm sorry. Since the public hearing is still open, I would invite you forward if you would like to speak at this annexation public hearing. Anyone to speak at this annexation public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll close the annexation public hearing. I apologize for my mistake. And I would open it up to council members for questions, comments, or a motion for this annexation.
I'll make a motion that we approve 25A01.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So before we move to our next public hearing, I'm going to go backwards. Since I skipped over the comments for council to ask questions. I don't know why I did that. I apologize.
Being very
We're going to go back to the Calyx comments from council and open it up to the council for questions or comments.
Well, first of all, we understand that you get a little bit frustrated. He just became a grandfather.
Again.
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 Thank you, Jack.
Mayor, I would point out, I think the applicant and most of the public hearing speakers did leave.
Uh,
So I'm not sure if any of them are still here to hear your comments at this point, but we can get in touch and make sure they're aware to come to listen and watch the video.
Okay, thank you. Again, I apologize. So open it up to council members for questions, comments.
I have a
couple too,
Yeah,
but you go first.
questions primarily. And we're going back to Calyx. Okay. I'm curious, I was reading the comments that were sent in and listening to the speakers, and I'm curious specifically about one of the comments asking where the entrance, where the in and out of this property is going to be. Full disclosure, I used to live near that area years and years ago. I wish I still did. I loved that condo. But I'm familiar because I did use that Reedy Creek cut through quite a bit. And so I think I have a decent handle on what the, Ms. Anderson, I think was her name, what she's saying about people using a secondary cut through and wanting to know if the entrance could potentially be on Harrison and suggested a light. I don't know, I'm not advocating for this. I'm just curious about whether or not there could potentially be a light at Wyatt's Pond Lane. And maybe his staff investigated, where it might ease some of that, those concerns the neighbors have about the in and out and the Reedy Creek and the cut through.
Sure. So because this rezoning was not triggering the 100 peak hour trips to trigger a traffic study, we don't have the data available to say whether a traffic signal at that specific location would be justified. That's something that certainly I'd be happy to reach out to our transportation staff and discuss further. If there's any information known already about this area that they could look into, we can look into that. In terms of the actual access points, because Reedy Creek and Harrison are both thoroughfares, our LDO default requirement would typically say to connect to both of those and have a connection through of some sort. If the applicant wanted to explore a modification to that, that would occur at time of development plan. They have made us aware that I believe there are some topography challenges along the North Harrison side, but our engineers would have to evaluate those at time of development plan.
That'd be excellent. I'd be very happy with getting an estimate from staff, just an idea. More full disclosure, I worked in a 60-bed nursing facility. So and this was back in the 90s, which is, basically forever ago, but decent idea of what the kind of in and out of staff is. And so I'm not terribly concerned that it's an enormous amount of traffic, but I can understand where, I think there's some reasonable expectation of maybe not creating more of a cut-through problem if we can avoid it. So I'm just interested to hear how that's going to potentially be built out.
We can see if we can get more information on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Piggybacking on that, when will you know where the access points will be, whether it'll be in Harrison, it'll be on Reedy Creek, what it'll look like, right in, right out? Because as thoroughfares, they're quite heavily traveled. When will that be known?
That would typically be at time of development plan, because that's when we've got the engineered plans, and that's when our engineers are evaluating that, looking for that separation of entrances. All of that information that you're talking about is evaluated at that time.
There's a light at Reedy Creek and Harrison, correct?
There is, yes.
And so there's a minimum distance from a light where an in and out would have to be anyways.
There is.
Would that be kind of at the southern edge of the property?
I would have to double check that against our maps and with our transportation staff, what the separation typically is that's required, but we could certainly find that out.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
Do you have any other questions? Right?
You probably have the same questions. I'm gonna let you go next. So I don't...
All right. I have a couple of questions. There's a note in there that the applicant has provided a 75-foot building setback from the southern property line. Since is it O&I?
Yes.
And it's residential below, is that a type A buffer that will be required?
It is, and the nuance here is that you'll note the applicant has requested 2 uses, and that's sort of to cover the bases. They could be a life care community or a nursing home or both. If it's a nursing home, it's a 40-foot type A buffer. If it's a life care community or a life care community in combination with a nursing home, it would be a 50-foot type A buffer. So it's likely to be a 50-foot type A buffer, but I just include that nursing home caveat.
So where then is the greenway on that southern part? Is it on the northern part of the buffer? Is it in between the type A buffer and the residence? Where is that determination?
So the exact alignment, again, won't be known until time of development plan. I think what you're getting at is some of the citizen concerns we've heard are, in regards to clear cutting that buffer to locate it as far south as possible. In reality, from past experience, we know that once we get to development plan and we have the benefit of the tree survey, the grading plan, all of that information, we'll look to evaluate where it can be placed in relation to that buffer. It is allowed to overlap. The situation where we would allow the entire buffer to be cleared for it to be located as far south as possible is probably not realistic. We're probably going to be looking to minimize the tree impacts if the tree survey picks up healthy vegetation in that buffer.
Yeah, so I mean, as a citizen, I would be quite concerned if I get a promise from the developer that they're going to not only move the building 75 feet back, but I also have this promise of 40 to 50 feet of type A opaque buffer, right? And then we, as a town, come through and there's no, the buffer basically is extinguished, right? So that is, I would hope that we would be able to work with the applicant and the citizens to protect them.
Right. And again, I believe we will at time of development plan. We would not want to see a situation in which all of the mature vegetation is cleared from that buffer. We'll probably be looking for, what is the level of impact that makes sense, that's not going to take out champion trees, healthy stands of mature vegetation. We just don't know the exact alignment until time of development plan. But you're right, it probably will be closer to the northern edge of that buffer. It's just that we don't have all the information to be able to say that with certainty at this moment.
Understood. And there's only discussion in the staff report regarding the southern part. And obviously that's where the residents are, and I have a few more questions there. But what's on the northern part, and why is that not discussed?
So there's no conditions that specifically speak to the northern part, and there is a residential lot there. So the lot that's bounded by the northern part of this development does have a residential home on it. So that would still be subject to that type A buffer. Okay. There's not been an additional setback offered off of that property line like there has from the south, but all of our standard minimum LDO requirements at a minimum would apply.
So they would get the 40 or 50.
Or 50 type A buffer, right.
And then, I swear this is my last question. The discussion from the citizens that they're on well, that's in a non-incorporated area of Cary on Melody?
That's correct, yes. And actually, I can pull that map back up if it would be helpful.
And I'm guessing that's community water or individual wells?
So I believe it's individual wells along Melody Lane. Okay. They are outside of the corporate limits.
They're outside of the corporate limits, okay. And is there any discussion with the developer about, I can't remember the last time we had a development, butting up to a well community and of a way to do some protection of those citizens, right? What is possible there?
That's something that certainly could be discussed. As far as staff is aware, they're certainly meeting our typical requirements for things like erosion control during the construction time, things of that nature. Specifically, if there are other things that could impact the well, I'm not aware. That's something that the applicant could look into further.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Well, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You can go ahead.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Laurie was saying. It's been a while with the wells. I think the good news is it was brought to our attention, and I think as we go through this process, I almost kind of remember, a long time ago, you had opportunity where you checked the quality of the well, and then as development happened, you could see if there was an impact. And the comment that caught my attention was the fact that they said that there might be some significant grading going on, or grading. The answer is, I don't know, but I think it's a good point in that as you're going through that development review, there ought to be some look at where those wells are and what the potential is, that type of thing. And, there was also concerns raised about stormwater. I believe our process is pretty good, and I think those things will kind of take care of themselves. But, in that overarching thing about stormwater runoff, let's just not forget, let's make sure we know where those wells are and make sure that there's no unintended consequences there. That's all. Thanks. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
That's okay. I'll follow up on the questions about the buffer. It's more of an observation than it is a question. I think it leaves citizens with a great amount of uncertainty when you have a greenway that could likely consume, 20 feet of a 50-foot buffer or 40-foot buffer, so about half of the buffer. There's just a lot of uncertainty there, and it would make it very hard for a person to know whether or not this is going to be bad for the neighborhood, for the homes, or just neutral. So I would recommend, if I was the applicant, I would recommend being more clear about what this southern property line treatment is. I think it would be much more appealing to pull the entire greenway out of the undisturbed buffer. That seems completely appropriate. And then the other question is I would feel very differently about this if I knew that it was this 75-foot setback with the building, but there was no parking or driveway in between there. Because it sounds like this Melody Lane is a little bit down from this parcel, you could potentially have headlights coming in, if there's parking spots and whatnot, coming into your backyard, which I think would be unappealing. So I think there's some clarification that the applicant could do to give people a greater sense of peace of mind. The other thing is that you showed us that both of the borders on the east and the west have overhead wires. And we don't know until development whether or not there's going to be the bearing of those wires or if they're going to stay up. And so I would like to see the applicant tell us what kind of treatment they're going to do when they do their plantings that will not conflict with the overhead wires if they can't bury them, if they're not being buried. Just because we've seen even, just further north on Harrison, where the school is, how their buffer was planted right below the overhead wires, and now they're completely gnarled, cut out trees and so forth. So I'd like to avoid that repeat.
Certainly. And we do require that canopy trees not be planted in those overhead power line easements, so those would be clear of the wires in theory.
Do crepe myrtles count as?
I believe crepe myrtles are understory, and I would need to look into further whether we would even allow them.
That's where I think a lot of I see that all over Cary, where myrtles have been planted and now they're being, chopped off by Duke Energy.
Crepe murder.
Crepe murder. It is crepe murder.
A lot of people do that on purpose. A lot of homeowners do that on purpose.
Yeah, but
to keep them shrub-like, they chop them.
If it's a commercial business, just so everybody knows, you cannot do that if you're a commercial business in Cary. So it is crepe murder. So, but Duke Energy can, because it's their wires. And so I just want to make sure we don't have an impending conflict here.
Other thoughts, questions, comments?
I just had one more, sorry, I
Okay.
lied. There's a comment by staff with regards to dedicating right-of-way for bicycle lane on Harrison, and I didn't see that as a condition or an offer. So just speaking to the applicant, I'd love to see a dedication of the sufficient right-of-way or the easements in order to accommodate bicycle lane on Harrison and accommodate the 12-foot wide separated bike and pedestrian facility, so the two of those together, because I can really see as that area, the commercial area starts to extend, we need to be ready to have the right-of-way for that, so that dedication would be really helpful.
Can I ask one more clarifying question, just for my edification? When we are talking about something like a a care home or a nursing facility. When you say dwelling units, how does that translate to beds?
So it's a little bit complicated when we get into nursing home versus life care facility. When we're talking about units, they can have multiple beds in them, just like a apartment can have multiple bedrooms in it. So you could have units that do have 2 beds in them, certainly. That's sort of the high-level answer. There's a little bit more nuance with calculating the nursing home density, but they've capped theirs at the 75 units anyway, so I don't believe it would apply in this
So
case.
if it says 75 units, what I assumed is that would be 75 bedrooms or rooms, resident rooms.
It would be 75 resident rooms. It could be more than 75 beds. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other comments, questions? I want to thank the council for bearing with me as I skipped discussion. I did see the applicant's representative come back in. She's nodding her head yes. Also want to make sure that we contact,
Oh, they're in the audience, actually.
yes, the individuals that spoke. I want to make sure that they heard the discussion. So did we miss any? That's Mr. Romanoff. Mr. Safransky is still here. Good. Whew. So my mistake didn't cause any harm, it looks like.
No problem.
Thank you, Ms. Puckett.
Thank you.
All right. Let me get back on track. We'll go to our third public hearing. This is 25A05 Macedonia Walnut Street annexation, and Principal Planner Rachel Smith will introduce the hearing. Council may take action. Ms. Smith.
Yes, the owner of an assemblage of approximately 15.66 acres of property located east of Walnut Street and north of Macedonia Road is requesting annexation into Cary's corporate limits so that they may also connect to Cary utilities. Including 2.35 acres of intervening right-of-way, the total area involved in this request is 18.01 acres. The property is located in Cary's extraterritorial jurisdiction. The vast majority of the site is zoned residential multifamily, with a small sliver on the southwest corner zoned residential 40. The site also falls within the Swift Creek Watershed Protection Overlay. A by right development plan, permitted by the existing zoning, is presently under review for 179 multifamily dwelling units. The development plan was recently approved by the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and annexation is one of the few remaining items in the approval process. After tonight's public hearing, Council may choose to take action on this request. This concludes my presentation, and after the hearing, I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. So now is the time for the public hearing for 25A05 Macedonia Walnut Street annexation, and I'll call on the clerk for any call-in speakers, written comments, and registered speakers.
No call-in speakers, written comments, or registered speakers.
If you're in the audience and would like to speak at this public hearing, now's your opportunity. Anyone to speak for the public hearing for 25A05 Macedonia Walnut Street annexation? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, open it up to my colleagues for questions, comments, or motion.
Make a motion to approve annexation petition 25A05.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to discussion. Our first discussion item is fiscal year 2026 recommended budget and related documents, and Town Manager Stiegel will present this item, and council may take action. Mr. Stiegel.
Thank you, Mayor. My apologies. Get to the right slide. Just a few slides here for you this evening. To recap this year's budget, it's $508.3 million, an increase of 2.1% over last year. As you'll see, about approximately a 10% increase in operating with a corresponding 23% decrease in capital expenditures. So the recommendation here this evening is to adopt the 2026 recommended budget with the proposed changes and adopt the attached resolutions authorizing Wake, Chatham, and Durham counties to bill and collect the town of Cary's real property taxes in fiscal year 2026. And finally, I'd like to thank the staff and the council for many, many months of very difficult work on the budget, and really proud of how they were able to work with you and our citizens in bringing in the questions related to this year's budget. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stiegel, and I'll just follow that up by saying it was many, many months and many, many hours and many, many meetings going through this budget, and it was a very difficult one. This is my 23rd year as an elected official, and this was by far the hardest one I've been involved in. I want to thank the staff for bearing with us. We asked some detailed questions, and we spent hours and hours, including Tuesday night. I'm on a drive listening to these questions and comments, and it was extremely difficult. And I know there are some citizens that are not going to be happy with the budget. I'm not happy with the budget, but it's the best we could do. And if we want Cary to remain the best of the best, and with this budget, we'll still be the lowest tax rate in Wake County, this accomplishes that. So I will be supporting the budget, and I do thank all of the staff members for all of the hours that they spent on this budget. And if this budget is approved, something has to be approved before July 1st. But if this budget is approved, staff can take a sigh of relief for one day, you said?
Well, maybe a week.
Maybe a week, and then we start on next year's budget, which will be just as hard. And the council will start working on next year's budget. I think I saw a work session in November. So we started all over again. And again, it will not be easy. But I do want to thank those who got us to this point today. And I'll open it up to my colleagues for additional comments.
I'll make some comments. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of concern about the budget because it does include a tax increase. And for those who are concerned about it and say, oh, well, council, you're not digging hard enough, you're not working hard enough, you and your staff should go back and sharpen the pencils. I think that's a term people like to use. There's aspects of our budget that are not well-known, but should be known. And one of the facts is that when the staff drafted its budget, our manager and our staff went back and eliminated $27 million out of the budget. They sharpened their pencils really, really well. And that's a lot. I mean, that is equivalent of over 5 cents on the tax rate. In addition to that, the council voted to defer or pause indefinitely 68 capital projects, and those total over $83 million. That is a huge decision because one of the things that we pride ourselves here in Cary is that we have exemplary infrastructure and services, and we have a lot of projects that that are very valuable to citizens, road widenings that will make their lives better, traffic signals and intersection improvements that will make it safer for their teenagers to drive, and so forth. And we have deferred all of these in the attempt to keep our budget as streamlined as possible. So this budget reflects a lot of sacrifices on behalf of our citizens so that we can keep our budget as streamlined as possible. So I really, with heartfelt thanks, want to acknowledge our manager, Sean Stiegel, and our fantastic staff, and particularly our budget staff, for the hard work that they did to get us to this point. But I also want to say thank you to my fellow council members, because we got through this process with a lot of scrutiny, but also amicably. And I think that's really important for us to get through that with such difficult conversations with respect.
Thank you. Well said. Other comments?
I'd just like to make one point of clarification. I had quite a few conversations with citizens about the budget. Made it clear each time, wasn't looking to raise taxes, that's for sure. The easier thing to do would have been to not raise taxes at all, if that was possible, without really painful cuts. We would have done it. I think everybody's nodding their head. The clarification I'd like to make is that this is the manager's recommended budget, right? But this is not the tail wagging the dog. So it is not a case of the staff and our town manager is raising taxes. This is us as a body reviewing all of the priorities and the expenditures and agreeing that this is the appropriate budget for the funds we have, for the revenues we can expect, we believe we can expect. So I just want to make that really clear. I've had this conversation, with quite a few groups And I think it's worth noting, primarily because it is one of the biggest responsibilities of this role. When you run for this office, it can be a little grueling, if I'm being completely honest. And this responsibility, this fiduciary responsibility, is taken exceptionally seriously by the folks on this panel. So I just wanted to share that clarification here on the record.
Thank you.
Well, since we're thanking a lot of people, I'd really like to thank the citizens because we had a tough year last year. I thought last year was tough, and this one was difficult as well. This year the body, the collective, we did something very different, which was we did a significant amount of outreach to our citizens. Every single board and commission got a presentation by a staff member. They gave feedback. They went through a budget exercise. Our Cary 101 group also basically acted as council members at the table, making the hard decisions as well. Many of our citizens participated in that as well. We gathered feedback multiple times through 311, through online polls, through our normal facilities. And we actually got our citizens, we even had a citizen come at our last meeting and say, this is great, actually I wish you'd text me more. Because what they learned through the process was what it takes to run a town as efficiently as the town of Cary is. One of the things we also learned was we received a great manager's recommended budget, but we all went through with our sharp pencils and our tweezers and pulling things out. And one of the changes that, if you've watched it through the process, is that we as a body suggested that we add a higher fee for sanitation so that we could get more recovery and from our citizens, so that all of our property tax, all of the folks paying property taxes aren't subsidizing the trash. The actual users of our recycling and trash are actually paying the sanitation fee for that. So it was a great manager's budget. We got great input from our citizens and our boards and commissions, and this body also pulled it apart. And so I'd like to thank all the citizens that participated, as well as our staff and the council members, for really going through what was a very detail-oriented budget.
Other thoughts?
I just want to thank the staff and Sean. It's been a very, very extremely. I know that I've worked very closely with the staff and just asked so many questions, and I know you guys have been extremely, extremely patient. And I want to echo the same sentiment here, that this was not just an overnight review that we looked at few papers and decided what the increase is going to be. It took time, almost a year, several meetings, a lot of hours, a lot of questions. And I think one thing I have to really mention is that there was I feel like there was a lot of transparency and honesty. The staff actually did an extremely good job in making recommendations on where can we scale back, what cannot be stopped, what do we continue with, and that added a lot of value, because if we did not do that exercise in past few months, the recommended rate would have been much higher, which I feel like that's one thing we have to recognize, that after so much work that went into cutting down some of the projects is how we got to such a lower rate. Yes. So I understand it's not that low. I understand some people are not going to be happy, and I totally understand why. But I want you to know that there was genuine effort made to get to the point where we are today. So I want to thank all of you.
I also want to echo the thanks to staff and input from residents. I believe we got much more input through the various processes, including email, 311, and staff did an amazing job of keeping us updated weekly on the input that was coming in from the various places. So we were making ongoing thoughts and decision-making instead of it's not, what I'm saying is we didn't just decide this in the last week. It's been constant input and weighing options. I can't say that I'm excited about voting tonight. I very much would have loved to have not increased taxes, as someone else pointed out. I think that's probably echoed from everyone. I know in my district, District B, our area median income is significantly lower than other parts of Cary overall. And I know many people are house burdened, and an increased property tax can be difficult for many. I also know as costs are rising for individuals, it's rising for us as a municipality as well. This is not just a Cary issue. In case some people in the audience or watching at home are tuning in on the night of the vote to see how things turned out and maybe did not see some of the details in the process, just a reminder that costs have gone up significantly. So kind of how I came to terms with a 1.5 cent increase is that that's basically zero. As inflation and all the costs are going up, it really is kind of the bare minimum of what we're able to work with. But as I said, I'm not excited about the vote, but what I am excited about is that the budget reflects that we're listening to our residents. And we know the bonds didn't pass. It was not like all people voting unanimously said no, but we can see that it was not a clear answer like it had been in the past. So we've definitely been listening. This is something we've been thinking about, working on, talking in individual conversations in our work sessions. And we actually discussed, was 1.5 cents enough? So many people have said, I say so many people, it wasn't, it was a few. We got a few comments that said, you're just going to do whatever the town manager recommends. And we said, hey, do we need it to be more? And as was just mentioned recently, someone from Cary 101 brought up some very good points. And I was very concerned, is this budget reflective of, are we putting the money in to make sure that staff understand, that we recognize that we have the best, most skilled staff in anywhere around, and we have the lowest staff, 7 staff to 1,000 residents, most efficient staff in all of Wake County and beyond. And I want people to make sure they understand that this 1.5 cent that we're proposing right now and going to vote on soon, we likely cannot carry this forward. We have been very efficient, but we are really doing bare minimum now. And as much as I want to keep it at nothing, that wasn't feasible. And next year, 1.5 cents is probably not going to be feasible. And so thinking about how we can get to the point where we're not 8 cents, 1 cent, 8 cents, 1 cent, 10 cents. We have to think about it being something that's more sustainable and more predictable. But unfortunately, right now, our economy is not necessarily predictable. And another thing that I know, I'm saying a lot more than usual tonight. One thing that I know we have talked about, and I will personally commit to, is making sure that we're thinking outside of the box in the future. And we already are. Knowing this is a rolling budget, the only thing set in stone tonight is the tax rate. But I want to make sure that we are going out and seeing what other options we have, since our revenue is so limited. And that's probably working with our partners in the legislature to say, hey, we need to think about some other options for how we can bring revenue in instead of it being all on property taxes and things like that. So I think, though not excited, I think we did a tremendous job. I think we can give ourselves a pat on the back, and that we worked so well together, and that we included the feedback. And as the budget doesn't just end, it's a rolling budget. District B will have an opportunity to give some, to come and to have some discussions in September. I think it's September. So, thank you.
Mr. Smith, you want to bring us home?
Sure. You said, what, 23 budgets? This is my 36.
I was wrong, it's 21.
21.
I'm rattled for some reason.
Look, this was a difficult budget, and to echo what some of the others have said, it is the town manager's recommended budget based on the feedback he's received from us. It's our budget. We own it. You're not happy with that, you come to us. I can tell you that it's a bare bones budget, and those that want to believe differently, you have every right to believe what you want to believe. I'll just respectfully disagree. This is a bare bone budget that makes sure that all of our basic needs are met and that we don't go backwards, that we continue to provide the services that we that our citizens want, and I'm proud of that. It was a tough budget, but on a personal basis, I can tell you, I can't begin to tell you just how proud I am of this staff. I've spent my business career working with companies on organizational development, improving productivity, making businesses improve and do better. I've never, ever in all that time, and I've worked with a lot of companies in New York City, AIG to name one, and others, and I have never seen a staff as professional as what we have here. We can be so proud of the people we have working for us here in Cary. They are dedicated, committed, and they listen. They listen to our concerns. We were all over the place at the beginning of this budget. It was an incredible thing for us to have to put 68 capital projects on hold. I can't begin to tell you just how mind-boggling that was to do. But we got through that. We made sure that our basic services are there and that you're going to be taken care of. It is my hope that things will be getting better down the road. But what I am assured of is next year, just like this year, we will have the team that will step up, work with this council, and work to continue to provide the best support to all of you out there. So thank you to our staff and our town manager and to my peers. We worked hard this time, didn't we? This was a long one. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Now's time for a motion on the budget, on the proposed budget, and I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the fiscal year 2026 recommended budget as reflected in the materials provided this evening, including the operating and capital budget ordinances and all related schedules and documents, and adopt the attached resolutions authorizing Wake, Chatham, and Durham counties to bill and collect the town of Cary's real property taxes in fiscal year 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's unanimously. Again, thank you, Ms. Stiegel, and to your staff. We now move to our last discussion item, 19 RZ 25, the Piney Plains multifamily. Principal Planner Aaron Puckett will give a report. Then we'll hear our Planning and Zoning Board's recommendation, and council may take actions.
Hello again. This is a request to rezone approximately 31 acres located at Piney Plains Road and Stevens Road. You held a public hearing for this request last year, and tonight I'll provide a brief overview of the case, including the timeline and the changes that have been made since you last saw it. As a reminder, the site itself is located south of US 1 and located west of Walnut Street in the Crossroads area. There are existing residential subdivisions to the west, and the recently approved Lavano multifamily development is located across Piney Plains Road to the east. There is also a large regional power line that bisects the site. This area is within an easement, and therefore no structures or canopy trees are permitted in this central portion of the site. There is also a forthcoming NCDOT interchange project that is likely to impact the site That project will redesign the Crossroads Junction interchange, and the Walnut Street eastbound on-off ramps will be closed and relocated to Piney Plains Road. Based on the most current information available from NCDOT, the project area, which is shown in purple on this map, will likely impact the northernmost portion of the site. The approximate project footprint is about 80 feet from the townhouse pod at its closest point, as shown on the preliminary development plan, or PDP. I do want to note that the location of the project shown here is approximate, as the final alignment has not yet been designed. According to NCDOT, design build is anticipated in 2027. The PDP proposes up to 370 multifamily units in the southern half of the site within 10 buildings that are divided into 2 different building forms. Buildings 1 through 4 in the southern and eastern areas of the site, which are shown in this darker orange color, will be larger multifamily buildings, which could be as tall as 65 feet or roughly 5 stories. The 6 buildings that are closest to the adjoining residential neighborhoods will be limited to 30 feet in height and a maximum of 7 units per building, with units side by side for a more townhouse-style design. 5% of the multifamily units are proposed to be affordable to renters making 80% of the area median income, or AMI, for a period of 30 years. The proposal also includes up to 16 townhouse units in the rear of the site, all of which would be affordable to those at 80% or AMI, 80% of AMI or lower for a period of 30 years. There is currently no conceptual layout or phasing for this pod. The applicant made a number of changes since the public hearing. They decreased the building height for buildings 1 through 4, which are those larger multifamily buildings, from 75 feet to 65 feet. And for buildings 5 through 10, the smaller format buildings, they were decreased from 35 feet to 30 feet in height. They also clarified a 35-foot height limit for the townhouse pod, which is comparable to the typical townhouse height limit in the LDO. They clarified that the smaller multifamily building units must be side by side and not stacked on top of each other for more assurance of a townhouse style form. They added street side trail along the northeastern half of the site's Piney Plains Road frontage and clarified the location of sidewalk along the site frontages. And they also clarified the timing of greenway construction would occur prior to the first certificate of occupancy for the site. Regarding the case timeline, the rezoning was submitted in late 2019, hence the 19 case number, and the required neighborhood meeting was held in January of 2020. Due to uncertainty with the NCDOT interchange project, this request was delayed for several years, with intermittent PDP resubmittals occurring over that time period. The case then proceeded to a public hearing in August of last year, and subsequently was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Board in April of this year. The Planning and Zoning Board unanimously found the request consistent with the Imagine Cary Community Plan, and a summary of their discussion was included in your staff report. And finally, tonight, the request is scheduled for potential final decision, and council may take action. Staff notes that many policies of the Cary Community Plan apply, as detailed in your staff report. I'll provide a high-level summary tonight. The proposal can support a number of LIV policies through the provision of a mix of housing types, including units affordable at 80% AMI. Phasing of the townhouse pod could even better ensure this. Provision of some street side trail lengths help to bolster engage goals, along with construction of a segment of greenway. Transitions are at least partially addressed by the townhouses and smaller format multifamily units. Regarding the destination center guidance, I do want to note that the Imagine Cary Community Plan explains that edges of future growth framework categories are not rigid lines, but may be interpreted in light of other relevant policies or circumstances. In this case, the site's location on an imprecise line between a destination center and a traditional neighborhood allowed the applicant to request to extend the mixed-use overlay district in order to use the tool of MXD zoning. The proposed use and intensity of the development can be appropriate in a destination center, but should also transition clearly to traditional neighborhood. Excess gathering space and buildings pulled towards Piney Plains Road with parking behind also helps to meet some of the plan guidance for destination centers. There are some policies which could be more fully addressed. The request to not dedicate an easement for a required off-street greenway link is not supported by the Engaged chapter. Transitions are partially met, as noted previously, but the large, potentially 65-foot tall building along Stevens Road near the abutting detached residential neighborhoods does not fully maintain that transition. Certain destination center guidance, such as locating parking in structures and increasing pedestrian connections, is not fully met by the proposal. The mix of housing is also not guaranteed, as the townhouse pod does not include any minimums or phasing conditions. However, on balance, staff finds the request more consistent with the Imagine Cary community plan policies than not. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Puckett. At this time, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Smith since he asked for the item to be pulled.
Yes, sir. Well, sometimes this week I felt like the warden at a penitentiary when, you have the death penalty coming and it's getting close to midnight and you have to pull the switch. And all of a sudden, about a week ago, I've heard from an individual that was representing several of the neighbors over there, and they wanted this pulled for discussion. So we talked, not at length, but we talked about how long this has been in the process, and I really kind of dismissed that initial a community meeting back, what was it, 2019 or way back?
2020, yeah.
And because, everything was on hold for so long and we had to get a clearer answer from DOT. But, what I was trying to share is that the concerns that were being brought up now are the same ones that were being brought up through the whole process. And sometimes you don't get everything you want, but over time, when this first came to us a while ago, and what it looks like now with the conditions, it kind of passed, passed the smell test. It made sense. It's at a corner where you're going to have Route 1 coming off, and you're right up there by Crossroads and all the other things. And by moving the buildings the way they did, could we have looked at other things for the townhouse complex, the 65-foot height? Maybe, but when you're looking at the topography, what's trying to be accomplished and what was the intent of our community plan, in the end, it made it through the public hearings, it made it through our P&Z unanimously, and at that point, since it complied with all of our community standards and it complied unanimously with our planning and zoning, it was on consent. So what I was trying to explain is it's not even up for discussion anymore. That ship has sailed. But in fairness, because there was so much time from the past and probably a lot of new people moving into that neighborhood, I felt it merited the opportunity that we pull it off, and you all have an opportunity to look at it again, just so we can be clear that we've listened to the concerns, we've addressed as many as we felt we could, and that it has full transparency. So that's why I pulled it. I appreciate your tolerance with all of that. And, there were a couple things on my mind since pulling, which is the commitment to the affordable housing and the commitment to Habitat. As I understand, that's not firm yet, but so that's one of the things I guess we as a council are putting at risk as we move forward. But again, I wanted to bring it forward so everybody, those new to that community, new to that neighborhood, and actually those of you that are relatively new to the council that may have not been here back at the very beginning of this application, we just all get to see it again with fresh eyes and make that decision. So that's where I was coming from. I don't see, I think I made a comment at the public hearing about the the opening of the street, which is required by our standards. And I received a lot of feedback where people didn't agree with that observation, and I'm sorry about that. But in the end, after years of doing these things, the greater safety of having that connection through and not having and it was marked as a stub out, those things are going to happen. And my argument, as you look at it today, is yes, it's possible that people will now use that as a cut through to meander all the way down parallel to Piney Plains, meander all the way down to the speed humps and the speed controls that are through Wellington, and go all the way down to Tryon, because they think that's easier than just going, making a tenth of a block move and going out on Piney Plains. So we will have to respectfully disagree. It's safer to do, and what I said to some of the folks over there is you have the right by our standards to come to us and have your road be considered for some traffic calming and some of those amenities that we have that can help keep that a safe corridor. So that was my intent.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Other comments, questions?
I have a couple of comments, but first, I would like to commend the developer for the private donation model. I mean, I do hope that future developers look at affordable housing as a partnership with the town. I was really impressed by the commitment of the developer and the willingness to donate land to Habitat for Humanity. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a staunch supporter of Habitat in many ways. So I did want to absolutely acknowledge the value of the gesture. And, also being a part of the shared priority that we all have for affordable housing. And at the same time, I have to be clear that while the donation is commendable, for me, it doesn't overtake a lot of the challenges that I think Piney Plains still has. It's the 49.51%. I would love to have seen some additional work by the developer to get it to what I would consider a number of real compromises. Obviously, the reduction in height is commendable, but there were some things that I was really concerned about. The mayor had asked for a balloon test to be done to help the community, the surrounding community, have a good feeling of what the height of these buildings look like. I've never known for a developer not to follow through on a request from this council, and that was concerning to me. I love, I want to give up this mixed message and why I was struggling with it. I love how we moved the transition of the townhomes closer to the single-family homes. I think that's a great compromise. But at the same point, the removal of the Greenway connection is quite concerning for me, as well as no community space identified for the Habitat homes. In this respect, I feel like we're doing a significant disservice to the Habitat community. Now, maybe as the Habitat group comes together and they plan where all the townhomes are going to be, they're going to come up with a community space. But without an actual commitment in paper, I feel like we're delegating a worse community than we would expect for other townhome communities. And then also, not only the missing Greenway easement, but also the connectivity. I have significant concerns with it. I'm also still concerned with the fact that developers think that a 5% commitment at 80% AMI is going to get it through. I just think in the challenge that we have here, and I appreciate the commitment. I'd love to see more of a commitment at not just 80%, but 60%. Now, by the way, just so any developer that's listening, I know that I'm not making my decision on that, but I'm just kind of giving all of my concerns with this particular development. For me, is it all the way where it could be? I think one of the citizen said, maybe it was Caroline.
Call to do better.
Yeah, could it be better? I do think it could be better. Is it better than it was in 2019? For sure. And this is a really tough place at the interchange, right? And I feel like it, at an interchange, that's a great place for apartments, right? I think that's a lovely place on that side. But I also think there's an opportunity for us to partner with our development colleagues to have a better transition for the single family homes that are there. So if it were me, I would want to, table it or slow it down to try to get a few more of these things that I think are incredibly important in. At the same time, I'm incredibly thankful to the developer for this partnership with Habitat for Humanity. And, if there was an opportunity to address that, I would love to support it. But at this point, I'd love to see the project benefit the entire community, not just socially and economically and environmentally and connectivity-wise, but right now, it's not there for me.
I'll go on your heels if that's okay, unless you want.
Go ahead.
Okay. Because you and I are very like-minded, very much so on this one.
People would be surprised,
People would be surprised, but no, we're very like-minded on this one because as I was reviewing the elements of it, I was just disappointed with many aspects of it. It is below the standards of what we would want for a community. The fact that, many of the apartment complexes we get now have structured parking. And this one in particular, because it has the high voltage wires going through there, seems like a perfect candidate for keeping some land preserved and densifying with structured parking. I don't like the fact that you are putting your parking under high voltage wires and you cannot have parking lot trees. Right. I mean, these are standards that just are not Cary. They're not like what we do here. Very disappointed about the greenway being removed. But the thing that I mentioned when this came to public hearing, and I want to mention again, is I have a lot of concern about the ramp that's going right by this. Our general standard has been 100 feet buffer between highways and our communities. And this one, it's going to be 80 feet, and we don't even know if that's going to be fully vegetated or if it's just, going to be a field and nothing's going to be planted there. I mean, this could turn out to be disappointing and unlike anything. What makes it very difficult is that we have this arrangement for the Habitat homes. And I am totally with you. I would like to be able to say, table this and try to do better. And I really liked, I think it was Caroline Thomas who said, this isn't, don't say no, just do a call to do better. And I thought that was well said because that's what's needed here. We should have a good transition on Stevens Road. We should have community space that's articulated in the zoning for the Habitat community. What I don't want us to do is get into the habit of lowering our standards for the sake of getting affordable housing, but then creating an environment that is not great quality for the people that live there. And, I think many of us on this council grew up in families that had modest means. And I certainly wouldn't want my family having full view of an entrance ramp, or an exit ramp, just because I live in affordable housing. I would want it to, if we're going to do it in Cary, let's do it the Cary way. So you and I are very like-minded on this one.
Yeah, the one other thing I wanted to mention is that I'm very concerned that there's no commitment to phasing, because I'm concerned that there'll be these 5-story buildings put in, and then when and if will the townhomes come? So we've promised this transition, right? And in many of our other developments where we've had transitions, transitions from single family to townhomes to apartments, we've had a phased plan to help those single family homes feel confident that yes, there's going to be this nice transition, but without a commitment to that phase, they could just build the 5-story apartment buildings, and the townhomes may never come, right? So without that commitment as well, I feel like, again, it's not the kind of standard that we've had in Cary. And again, they may be willing to do that, but if we make the vote right now with what's in front of us, it's just not there.
Yeah, and then the other thing I'd like to add to this is that we are now in that point where we have these small parcels of land. I say this is relatively small compared to like what we used to have, 800 acres or whatever, and you have densification. And so we have a lot of these communities coming in right up against a neighborhood. And when done extremely well, it works. When it enhances the neighborhoods that are there today, you're like, wow, what a win. You're going to love this. You're going to be able to walk over to the coffee shop. You're going to be, stroll through here, jog back home on the greenway. You're going to love this. This doesn't do it. This is just sort of like a land use, stuff. It's just stuff put next to your neighborhood. I don't think it's going to enhance the community that it's tying into. And that's disappointing because I think it could if it was done a little bit differently.
I mean, you convinced me that maybe tabling's a good idea.
Well, I would hate to do that
Seriously.
without knowing what the applicant
Well, I
is,
mean,
but
you could table it, and I think we need to be clear tonight. We're looking for these things, and they can come back and go, no, we can't do that. Then we know, then we can vote, but
I'd love to hear what the rest of.
yeah.
I'd
What
like
do
to
them?
share an alternative perspective on the townhomes. I grew up in a mobile home park built off of a highway. We were lucky, though, ours had a paved driveway. That was a big deal. If that was not directly adjacent to a highway, we would not have been able to afford to live there, right? So in a perfect world, less expensive housing would be in an idyllic location. The world is not perfect, and I don't think this location is terrible. If it was terrible, I want to share this. I trust the team at Habitat for Humanity. I had a brief phone call this week, wanted to check in about it, make sure, A, that they were okay with the MOA, right? Because the applicant at this point is not able to give a solid, put it into the conditions. I wanted to make sure they were comfortable with the MOA. They were. And they're excited about this location. So what I'm doing is taking myself out of this and trusting Habitat for Humanity. If they feel good about this location, then that's good enough for me, from my perspective. And I think there's certainly worse things in the world than being, a little bit close to a highway. Now, if it was on the highway off-ramp, that'd be different, right? But I think there's enough distance that it's not going to be harmful to anybody's health or well-being. And that being said, this project is further along towards mixed income than we typically see here in Cary. What we see here in Cary are projects that really, in practice, become they're kind of segregated. Not kind of, let me take that out of my vocabulary today. They are really kind of economically separating and segregating people. And what I do like about this is that it is that mix of types of housing and incomes, which I think is not just right for Cary. I think most cities and municipalities, you get a fairer, more resilient community when you can mix incomes together a little bit better than it always happens when you have really distinct neighborhoods, or a lot of times we call them traditional neighborhoods, and they're wonderful. I live in one of the older communities here in Cary downtown, but it was always a mixed income community, and it was my absolute favorite thing about my old downtown Cary neighborhood. And it's actually getting even more mixed now that they're building some big, nice, fancy houses. So it's actually even more interesting. It's really mixed income now. It's the entire gamut of conceivable incomes and rentals and homeowners and housing types all mixed together. So for those reasons, I'm in support of this project. And I just want to say it again, I'm going to trust the team at Habitat. I do believe if there's probably, there's lots of things here that aren't predictable about the new, it's 1 and 64, the ramp, right? I trust that they won't build housing that's substandard if that turns out to be the case, and put something there that they would be not proud of. So that's my perspective.
Comments from this end?
Go. You go. I agree with Councilmember Cone Johnson that in thinking about this, my decision is not based solely on affordable housing. I just want to say that in the conversations that I've had and what I've read and talked about, that as she said, I trust that Habitat, when they say they have a firm agreement, that they feel confident about the opportunity here and that it is a good opportunity for mixed income development. And, you know, some of the things that have changed wasn't on the council in 2019, so my perspective is smaller and only what I've read in the past, of course. But I see some of the changes, the decrease in height, and, you know, being among the things that I think has been a positive change. And I don't see anything here that would cause a no to me. In addition, I also don't want to discourage partnerships like this in the future. Nothing that I see makes me, while it's not 100%, everything's perfect, yes, as none of them are, I have no reason to vote no on this.
Ms. Bonsall?
So I'd have to agree with Councilwoman Cone Johnson and Councilwoman Craig. I feel like this site is so different and unique and probably will have some sort of challenges. So I can understand why a hard set commitment is not available right now. But then I do see an opportunity for a mixed income. And this would be a great development in my view. I feel like I understand what Councilwoman Bush mentioned about 5% commitment for affordable housing in the apartments, and 80%, but then, you know, they're also donating a big piece of land to Habitat for Humanity, which we don't see too often. So I'm pretty happy with where their commitment for affordable housing is, and I do feel I'm in favor of this project.
So I would recommend that we try a motion to table first, and if that fails, we can do a motion to approve, deny, whatever. Since there is interest in tabling, I don't know if you're interested in making such a motion or not.
I have a question.
Sure.
Or procedure. You know, I brought it up because it was brought to my attention, and I'm glad I did. I was not expecting, you know, this level of conversation, which is always healthy and good. So if anybody ever thinks we're kind of preset in our thoughts, I think we can approve that tonight. But the one question I would have is, my thinking all along has been that a lot of this we have discussed in the past, and we've got to this point feeling it was the best we could get to, and it was like, not great, this is my words now, not great, but achieves a lot of what we want to do and at that location. So the question I would have is, if we're going to consider a table, is it appropriate for the applicant to say anything?
Sure.
You know, I don't know what their deadlines are,
Yeah,
or
you're
if that even
exactly
is,
right.
if that should even be considered. I
Sure.
don't know, but we brought up a lot of questions. So a lot of these we brought up before.
Right.
But maybe it's, if the applicant is here, I would say, if the council's willing, I think it would be worthwhile to have.
Perfectly fair.
And I also
Perfectly fair.
think it's interesting because I think we all agreed that the value of the habitat component is
in some respects, overshines, right, all of the other components, right? And sometimes you're willing, especially me, I'm willing to overlook some other things that really concern me. But some things like phasing, right? Phasing to make sure that the residents get that transition before the 5-story. Some of those things may or may not be doable, or additions by, as conditions by the applicant, but some of those could certainly change my mind, right? Because as I'm trying to lay it out, those are the kinds of things that kind of bubbled it over the 49% over into the 51, right? And like, so the phasing, and I don't know how they feel about the Greenway, but there's enough of those that should they bubble up, I might support it. But at this point right now, if we were to take a vote, I think it's pretty clear where I stand. But they may not be things that the, you know, why table it if the applicant is not interested?
And so
in doing
let's
it?
just
That's kind of the
ask.
point.
Is what you're saying.
So, Mr. Barron, you're representing the applicant. I would love to get your feedback on whether you want us to proceed tonight or table. You've heard the discussion.
I have, yes. Our strong preference, given that this is 19 REZ 25, would be to move forward tonight, if possible. I would like to respond to a couple of things that were mentioned, because I think there is some information that is not 100% accurate as it relates to the council's analysis of this case, or at least it didn't sound that way from where I was sitting, and that could be on me. First, with respect to the Greenway. We are building the Greenway, we are connecting the Greenway, and we are bringing it around the townhome site, and then we are connecting it to a 10-foot wide street side trail that will ultimately connect out to Piney Plains and connect to a 10-foot wide street side trail that we were bringing up Piney Plains. We aren't eliminating the Greenway section. We're relocating it because we don't think it makes the most sense to plan for it adjacent to potentially a future interchange that could end up consuming that Greenway. We felt it was better to go ahead and plan for it through the middle of our site. So we have a consistent 10-foot wide Greenway as well as street side trail. And as you all know, street side trail sections are used often by the town in order to move from point A to point B. Further, I would note that we're talking about roughly 250 feet of distance difference. That's the difference from where our 10-foot wide street side trail connects to Piney Plains versus where the Greenway would otherwise connect to Piney Plains. So I don't think it's a fair representation to say that we are removing the Greenway. We are relocating it and converting it to a street side trail like the town regularly does. Councilwoman Robinson, with respect to the buffer off of interchanges, while the buffer off of a highway is indeed 100 feet, off of a ramp it's 50 feet. And we have planned around that based upon the information that we have from DOT, which we recognize could change, but they've gone through this for several years now. They went public with 3 different versions of their maps back in 2020 when this project first stalled. And every version of their plan that they have published and their latest information shows, generally speaking, the location of the ramp in that. So I just wanted you to know that the thoroughfare corridor buffer is actually 50 feet off of ramps. With respect to phasing, the reason why we haven't phased the townhomes, the Habitat portion of the development, is really for Habitat's sake, because Habitat can't commit to when they are going to build their townhomes. They get property, and then they have to put it in kind of a list of prioritization, and you can ask them this question. So it really relates to empowering Habitat to make the right decision for Habitat homes and Habitat's resources, rather than making a commitment with respect to a certain minimum amount or a certain timing associated with the development of the Habitat homes.
Mr. Barron, I was talking about pods 5 through 8.
I understand that,
Okay.
and I'm going to get to that. All of the apartments are going to be built in a single phase. They don't build these in multiple phases. All of the apartments that are built are going to be built at one time. We don't have a condition on that because we hadn't been asked that question, but I can assure you the apartments will all be built at the single time. They're not going to remobilize a team to go in and build 6 small buildings. They're going to build all of these units at once as part of the apartment community. I can assure you of that. I think that covers the last thing I do want to mention with respect to plantings in the transmission line. you can plant in the transmission line. In fact, there's an ordinance provision in the LDO. The only thing you can't do is plant upper story trees, but you can plant trees that grow up to 25 feet. And there's an ordinance provision in the LDO that acknowledges specifically instances like this and says, if you have transmission lines and you need to be able to plant trees, you are allowed to replace on a 2-for-1 basis. So if you can't do an upper story tree, you replace it with two trees that can grow from 15 to 25 feet. We fully intend on complying with that ordinance provision. So again, I just want to make you all aware that I think the concerns that I'm hearing are concerns that we've been thinking about for a while, and we have been working very, very hard to address. We're super excited about the opportunity to move forward with the site. You know, we've been at it for 6 years. I know Habitat is super excited about the opportunity personally, and you all have heard me talk about my passion for affordable housing. I think this is a great model, and it's a great message to the development community to say, if you're going to do something that maybe is a little bit taller than we're comfortable, then you need to get creative on town priorities, and one of those is affordable housing. And so I just wanted to share that information. I'm happy to answer any further questions you might have. I naturally never want to know on a case and would love to hear from the rest of the council, but it's been 6 years. And I'm going on vacation tomorrow, and I'd love to not think about this case again.
So let me just say, you mentioned you mentioned 4 things, but of the 3, you could easily add conditions. You could say that you're going to have an 80-foot buffer off of the ramp, because that's not a condition, so it's just sort of like thrown out there with no meat behind it. So I mean, you could say, we'll put an 80-foot planted buffer between there. As far as all built in one phase, that would be an easy condition for you to say. That would kind of take away one of Lori's big concerns. If you can put in the trees, then why do you have a modification to the parking lot tree requirement? I would say just remove that then. And here, Jason, you've been around a long time. Some of us have been around a long time. We've gotten burned, not by you, but burned by development, because we have an applicant who comes in and says, oh, we're gonna put this road, this pedestrian crossing under the road, and want to be great, and we didn't get it as a condition, and then it doesn't happen. Or we're going to build this great community here, and it's going to have these lovely courtyards, and it's going to be so nice, and you're going to love leaving Parkside Commons and go to this beautiful neighborhood. And we're like, yeah, that's beautiful, and then they sell it, and it gets built differently.
Only half of it.
Yeah. So we've been burned, and so I think those of us who've been around a while want to make sure that, if there are elements that make this palatable to the community, that those elements get listed as conditions so that we have some surety that it's going to happen. So, that's what I have to say about the conditions. I will say, I still don't think this is the right transition for this community. I respect what you're saying about, put a neighborhood where you can, but if we build out the rest of Cary on our little fragments that we have left, doing the best that we can, well, it's good enough because, this is the last land we have and this is all we're going to get. We're going to end up with, I think of a nice word to say, subpar community. And we have spent many, many decades trying to build the nicest community for people to live in. And so it's just something that we have to consider. And of course, it's balancing. I mean, we have a lot of elements we have to balance, but at the very least, I think these conditions should be in here. But we can go ahead and vote if
All
you
right,
want to vote.
so are you still, I'm in flip-flopping. I don't know if I no longer want to table.
I mean, if they were, for me, and I appreciate Mr. Barron coming up. I saw partial construction of a greenway, street side trail, removal of a greenway connection. I was quite confused with that. It is still a greenway that goes to nowhere, and that's better than no greenway, but a connection to the street side trail is helpful. And so that actually alleviates some of my concern, but I still have the concerns, especially when it comes to, and it's not that I don't trust you, but I just want to ensure that the homes that are next to these townhome-like apartments are going to get a townhome-like feel for the transition. And I have seen that not happen in the past, which is why in the last few that we've approved, we've had those phasing conditions there. So that one is a concern to me. I'm still, do I think the parking lot tree modification should be there? I don't. I did ask staff about the trees, and we talked about that canopy trees were not allowed. Would you like to
Correct. So typically,
share what you?
the parking lot canopy trees, parking lot trees are required to be canopy trees. There is a section of our ordinance, which we honestly rarely use anymore, that allows some understory there. It doesn't prevent Duke from taking them out, but it does. The current modification on the table is that they would put some shrubs in the parking lot instead of trees.
Right. And so there is no guarantee that there'll be trees, right? They would be shrubs at this point.
Correct. They would displace some of the trees that would otherwise be required in the parking lot along the perimeter. So there will be some trees, just not shading the parking lot.
That's not a condition as well. So I appreciate yes, we're going to put trees there, but I don't see it as a condition. And so those are concerning. And if those would, they're already a removal of 10 champion trees. If some of this work could be done, yeah, it would get it over that 4951 for me. But I may be the only one, or Councilmember Robinson and I may be the only ones.
So are we ready for some motions, I hope?
Yes.
All right.
I move that we adopt the following documents to attach the online agenda: the Statement of Consistency 19-REZ25 and Rezoning Ordinance 19-REZ25.
There's a motion.
Second.
And the second discussion, I would say, I don't think a motion to table would pass, but if you want to vote this down and try, we can do that, but I don't think it will. So.
No, I think the important part of this was having the discussion, letting developers also hear our discussion, also letting the citizens know that we heard them, we care about, their feedback and their input, and also letting the Habitat community know that we absolutely support this, and we want it to be a community where everyone feels welcome and feels that they get the kind of support from the council and from development as every other community does, right? We want high quality for everyone.
I mean, I respect the concern about being burned in the past. We have. Looking at this, this is tough, but I think the trust is there, and I think there's enough data and there's enough in writing that this merits moving forward. So.
Any other comments? We have a motion on the table to approve. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Motion carries 5-2. Thank you, Mr. Barron, for providing additional information. That concludes the regular agenda, and we now need to go into closed session, and I would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Okay, pursuant to GS 143, 318, 11A1 and 3, I move that we hold a closed session to consult with attorneys employed by and or retained by the town in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between attorneys and the town. Among other things, the council expects to receive advice concerning the following lawsuit of Forney versus the Township of Cary, and prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of the state or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and we now go into closed session in 1035.
Oh, 103.
Is it anybody's birthday?
Sorry, I
Yeah.
flip-flopped.
Sure.
We'll resume our council meeting. Our business has been concluded, so this council meeting is adjourned.